Released in 1968 and directed by George A. Romero, Night of the Living Dead is widely regarded as the film that defined the modern zombie genre. Before this, zombies in film were usually tied to voodoo traditions, as seen in movies like White Zombie, 1932. Romero changed that completely. His undead were reanimated corpses driven purely by the urge to consume living flesh. The film was produced independently on a modest budget of $114,000 and grossed over $30 million worldwide. Shot in black and white, it starred unknown actors and was filmed in rural Pennsylvania. Despite its low budget, it broke new ground in horror by combining graphic violence with political and social undertones, particularly in its casting of Dwayne Jones, a black actor, as the lead during a racially tense era in the US. Romero never called them zombies. The term isn't used in the film, but the slow, shambling, flesh-eating ghouls he created would go on to inspire decades of zombie films, TV shows, games, and literature. The film's legacy is immense. It entered the public domain due to a copyright error, which helped it spread widely. More importantly, it redefined the undead in pop culture and became the blueprint for almost every zombie movie that followed. Directed by Danny Boyle and released in 2002, 28 Days Later played a pivotal role in revitalizing the zombie genre for the 21st century. Although the film doesn't feature traditional undead zombies, it introduced a new kind of threat. Humans infected with the rage virus, a fast-acting pathogen that turns victims into violent, mindless aggressors within seconds. The film begins with Cillian Murphy's character waking up in an abandoned hospital in London, discovering that society has collapsed following the virus's spread. The screenplay was written by Alex Garland, and the film was made on an estimated budget of just $8 million. It went on to gross over $82 million worldwide. 28 Days Later is notable for several reasons. First, it helped popularize fast-moving zombies, which drastically increased the threat level compared to the traditional slow-shuffling undead. While the infected aren't technically dead, the film's influence led to a broader acceptance of fast, virus-driven zombies in popular media. Boyle also shot most of the movie on digital video, a bold choice at the time, giving the film a gritty, documentary-like realism. Key scenes, like the empty streets of London, were filmed early in the morning with the help of police and traffic shutdowns, creating a striking visual of urban desolation. The film's success sparked a sequel in 2007, and discussions of a third installment have continued for years. It's often credited with kickstarting the 2000s zombie boom, paving the way for future titles like World War Z and The Walking Dead. Released in 2016 and directed by Yoon Sang-ho, Train to Busan is a South Korean action horror film that gained international acclaim for its emotional storytelling and intense, fast-paced zombie sequences. The film follows a father and his young daughter on a high-speed train to Busan during the outbreak of a zombie virus, turning what should be a routine trip into a desperate fight for survival. Train to Busan was made on a budget of approximately $8.5 million and grossed over $98 million worldwide, making it one of the most successful Korean films internationally. What set it apart was its ability to balance character development with visceral action, rare in a genre often dominated by gore alone. The zombies in this film are fast and aggressive, similar to those in 28 Days Later, but they also exhibit pack behavior and are triggered by sound and movement. The infection spreads in seconds, and confined train cars intensify the sense of panic and urgency. Critics praised the film for its social commentary, particularly in how it explores class division, selfishness, and sacrifice during a crisis. It also introduced international audiences to Korean genre cinema in a major way, helping open the door for films like The Wailing and Parasite. A prequel animated film titled Soul Station was released shortly before the main feature, and a sequel, Peninsula, followed in 2020, though it received more mixed reviews. With its mix of action, emotion, and fast-moving zombies, Train to Busan is considered one of the most important zombie films of the 21st century. Directed by George A. Romero, Dawn of the Dead is the second installment in Romero's legendary zombie series and a direct follow-up to Night of the Living Dead, 1968. While the first film introduced Romero's version of the modern zombie, Dawn of the Dead expanded on that version with a bigger budget, broader setting, and pointed social commentary. The story follows 4 survivors who take refuge inside a suburban shopping mall after society begins to collapse due to a zombie outbreak. This time, Romero had a budget of around $1.5 million, substantially more than the original, and the film grossed approximately $55 million worldwide. The zombies in Dawn of the Dead continue the slow-moving, flesh-eating tradition introduced in the first film. However, this time, Romero added layers of symbolism. The setting, a mall, wasn't just convenient, it was deliberate. The film critiques consumer culture, showing zombies mindlessly wandering stores, drawn to what they once did in life. Makeup and special effects were handled by Tom Savini, who helped set a new standard for gore in horror cinema. His practical effects gave the film its iconic look: bright red blood, grotesque injuries, and memorable zombie designs. Dawn of the Dead was released unrated in the US due to its graphic content, but that didn't stop it from becoming a cult classic. It's often cited as one of the best zombie films ever made, and remains a critical reference point for filmmakers exploring the undead. World War Z, directed by Mark Forster and released in 2013, brought zombies into blockbuster territory. Based loosely on the 2006 novel by Max Brooks, the film starred Brad Pitt as Jerry Lane, a former UN investigator tasked with tracing the origin of a global zombie pandemic and finding a solution before humanity collapses entirely. The film was one of the most expensive zombie movies ever made, with a reported budget of $190 to $220 million and a global box office earnings exceeding $540 million. It marked a significant shift in the genre, not just in scale, but in tone. Unlike traditional zombie films focused on a single town or group, World War Z adopts a global perspective, taking viewers through South Korea, Israel, and Wales as the outbreak spreads. The zombies here are fast and hyper-aggressive. They swarm in packs, pile over each other, and move with almost insect-like coordination. This depiction led to some of the film's most memorable visuals, such as the undead scaling the walls of Jerusalem in a matter of minutes. These zombies also react primarily to sound, leading to several high-tension stealth-based sequences. The production of World War Z was notoriously troubled. The third act was reshot after poor test screenings, shifting from a large-scale battle in Russia to a quieter, more suspenseful climax in a World Health Organization facility. Despite these behind-the-scenes issues, the final product was commercially successful and introduced the zombie genre to a wider mainstream audience. Directed by Jaume Balagueró and Paco Plaza, Rec is a Spanish found-footage horror film released in 2007 that helped redefine modern zombie cinema. Set in a Barcelona apartment complex, it follows a TV reporter and her cameraman covering a routine fire station shift until they're trapped inside a building where a violent infection breaks out. Shot entirely through the character's handheld camera, the film uses real-time footage and no musical score to build tension. This immersive style gives it a documentary feel, amplifying its realism and dread. The infected are fast and aggressive, with symptoms resembling rabies. However, the film later reveals a supernatural layer. The virus may have originated from demonic possession and Vatican experiments, adding a unique twist to the typical Outbreak narrative. Made on a $2 million budget, Rec grossed over $32 million globally and won multiple international awards. It launched 3 sequels and inspired the American remake Quarantine 2008, though the remake stripped out the religious elements. Widely regarded as one of the scariest found-footage horror films, Rec stands out for blending viral terror with supernatural horror in a fresh, claustrophobic setting. Directed by Edgar Wright and released in 2004, Shaun of the Dead is a British horror comedy that blends zombie apocalypse with deadpan horror and emotional depth. It stars Simon Pegg as Shaun, a 29-year-old stuck in a dead-end routine whose life is interrupted by a full-blown zombie outbreak across London. While the film parodies zombie tropes, it also functions as a legitimate entry in the genre. The zombies are slow in classic Romero style, and the outbreak is treated with genuine stakes despite the film's comedic tone. Its mix of humor and horror was groundbreaking at the time, influencing countless horror comedies that followed. Shaun of the Dead was made on a $6.1 million budget and earned over $30 million worldwide, becoming a cult favorite. It was also the first film in Wright's Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, followed by Hot Fuzz and The World's End. The film pays direct homage to George A. Romero's work, so much so that Romero reportedly loved it and gave Wright and Pegg cameo roles in Land of the Dead 2005. Behind the laughs, it explores themes of friendship, adulthood, and personal growth under extreme pressure. Shaun of the Dead proved that zombie films could be self-aware, heartfelt, and still deliver the gore, and remains one of the most beloved genre hybrids to date. Released in 2002 and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, Resident Evil is a science fiction action horror film based on the popular video game series by Capcom. It marked the beginning of a long-running film franchise and helped bring video game horror adaptations into the mainstream. The story centers on Alice, played by Mila Jovovich, who wakes up in a mansion with no memory, only to discover she's part of a security team investigating a viral outbreak in an underground lab called the Hive. The virus, developed by the Umbrella Corporation, reanimates the dead and mutates animals and humans into aggressive monsters. Unlike traditional zombie films, Resident Evil mixes sci-fi, corporate conspiracy, and action, with zombies playing just one role among other threats like bioengineered creatures and AI. The zombies themselves are slow and classic in design, but appear in large numbers, creating overwhelming odds for the characters. Made on a budget of $33 million, the film grossed over $100 million worldwide. It received mixed reviews, but gained a loyal fanbase and went on to spawn 6 sequels, making it one of the highest-grossing horror franchises of the 2000s. Though it took creative liberties with the game's storyline, Resident Evil introduced a more stylized, action-heavy version of the zombie outbreak, and helped define the genre for a new generation. Directed by Francis Lawrence and released in 2007, I Am Legend is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi horror film starring Will Smith as Dr. Robert Neville, the last known human survivor in a deserted New York City following a global pandemic. The film is loosely adapted from Richard Matheson's 1954 novel of the same name, which has been the basis for multiple screen adaptations. The outbreak in the film is caused by a genetically engineered virus originally designed to cure cancer, which mutates and wipes out most of humanity. The infected become aggressive nocturnal creatures called Darkseekers. While they aren't technically zombies, they fulfill many of the same functions: human in origin, mindless in behavior, and dangerous in large numbers. I Am Legend was made on a $150 million budget and grossed over $858 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing zombie-adjacent films ever made. Will Smith's performance received praise for carrying much of the film solo, supported primarily by visual effects, flashbacks, and his character's relationship with his dog. Though the film diverges significantly from the novel, especially in its portrayal of the infected, it helped popularize viral outbreak narratives and introduced a more dramatic survivalist approach to the genre. An alternate ending closer to the novel's themes was later released, adding further depth to the idea that Neville may be the real legend as a monster in the eyes of the infected. Directed by Colm McCarthy and released in 2016, The Girl with All the Gifts is a British post-apocalyptic horror film based on a novel by M.R. Carey, who also wrote the screenplay. It presents a unique twist on the zombie genre by centering the story on a second-generation infected child named Melanie, who retains her intelligence and empathy despite her hunger for human flesh. The outbreak is caused by a mutated strain of the Ophiocordyceps fungus, based on a real parasitic fungus known for infecting insects. This scientific grounding makes the film's apocalypse feel disturbingly plausible. Most infected humans become mindless, fast-moving hungries, but a small number of children like Melanie exhibit advanced cognitive function. Set in a dystopian UK, the story follows a military base conducting experiments on these children in hopes of finding a cure. As society collapses further, the characters must choose between preserving what's left of humanity or accepting a new dominant species. The film was made on a budget of about $5 million and premiered at the Locarno Film Festival before receiving wide critical acclaim for its performances, storytelling, and thematic depth. Directed by Zack Snyder and released on Netflix in 2021, Army of the Dead is a zombie heist film that blends action, horror, and science fiction. Set in a quarantined zombie-infected Las Vegas, the story follows a group of mercenaries hired to break into a casino vault and steal $200 million before the city is nuked by the government. The zombies in this film are split into 2 types, the slow traditional shamblers and the new class of intelligent, organized undead known as alphas, led by a zombie king named Zeus. This hierarchy and the presence of a zombie queen introduce a level of coordination rarely seen in the genre, expanding zombie lore with the idea of a functioning society of the infected. With an estimated budget of $70 to $90 million, the film was a major streaming release for Netflix and launched an expanded franchise, including a prequel, Army of Thieves, and planned sequels. It marked Zack Snyder's return to the zombie genre after his 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake. While it received mixed critical reviews, the film was praised for its ambitious world-building and genre-mashing approach. It pushed the boundaries of what zombie films could explore, beyond survival, into politics, mythology, and even speculative evolution.